So I'm Lemeth, and I'm super excited that we have Jennifer Cochran here with us today. She is the chair of Bioengineering at Stanford, and for today's workshop, like we usually do, we'll do a quick fireside chat and then open up to questions from you. And then our activity is that we are going to be extracting DNA from strawberries.
I've done that.
Really? Was it fun?
Yeah, there's DNA.
Yeah.
It's a white dot. I'm sorry for spoiling. But the process is neat.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool science.
Oh, you can extract DNA from blueberries too?
I think you could extract DNA from a lot of things. But there's a lot of cool sciencey looking stuff there, and then we'll just have some time to mingle and chat at the end. So thank you so much for being here. Could you start by telling me a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and how you fell in love with bioengineering?
Sure, and I just, before I dig in, I just wanted to thank you for having me here today and hosting this amazing event. I did bring some women bioengineering graduate students from Stanford here today who are going to be introducing themselves in a little while and also helping with our activity today. So thank you for joining us as well. So I actually started out wanting to do something in the arts and music. So when I was growing up, I really liked dance, I really liked art, I really liked to play the piano and to sing, and I really thought I was going to do something in that avenue for my career. And as I was advancing, I realized I also loved science, and I loved to be curious, and I loved to create things. And what I only just recently realized is that engineering allows me to do both of those things. It allows me to be creative, and it allows me to build things and make things. And I get the privilege of being able to combine both of those things into one. And so for me, that was a really amazing journey that I get to be able to do both of those things. And I feel like being a scientist and an engineer is just another way of being an artist. And it's just that you use a different medium instead of using paint or using clay.
And can you explain to us what is bioengineering?
Yes, bioengineering is very broad, and you will get different definitions depending on who you ask. So in the Department of Bioengineering at Stanford, we consider bioengineering to be the fusion of math and physics and quantitative sciences with the life sciences. And we have a mantra of measure, model, and make, and we use biology to do that. So it's a very broad definition, and you can consider bioengineering to be things like what I do is I develop new molecules that we can use as cancer therapeutics. Eva and Alice, for example, they use bioengineering to develop new materials for either cancer applications or for tissue engineering, and they'll tell you a little bit about some of their research. We have other people in the department who do genome and genetic engineering or surgical robotics, or they study concussion, they build medical devices. So it's a very broad definition, but at the core of all of it is measuring, modeling, and making with biology.
Incredible. And this is sort of a new concept combining computing and the life sciences. So how do you think that computers and biology are sort of the next frontier for science?
Well, we're in a really great area of the world to be able to do that, and we've seen the great evolution of electrical engineering and computer science, and now bio is sort of the next add-on to that, so we get to build on this amazing infrastructure that we have and the world has now with computer science. And you know, the application of computers to biology is just again, another application and something that is very complex. So biology, we still don't understand everything that there is to know about health and the human body and you know, how cells behave and interact. And so the hope is that we could use computers to help us figure that out.
That's incredible. And can you also tell us a little bit about what you do at Stanford every day as the chair of the department?
Wow, yes, that's an interesting question. Every day is different, and I think it's true for all faculty members, which is why we love being professors. So we get to teach classes, we get to mentor amazing students, both undergraduate and graduate students. We get to come and do events like this. As department chair, I get to help enable the faculty to do great new initiatives, things that they're very passionate about. I get to interface with the leadership of the university to build up bioengineering, not only at Stanford, but also externally to the world. So every day is just a new adventure, and it keeps it very exciting.
What's the biggest challenge that you face every day?
Not having enough resources for all the things that we want to do. And that's a challenge that many people face in all, all areas, whether it's a company or in academia.
And how do you prioritize then what you want to focus on?
Well, a lot of it comes down to how many people are excited about it. So if you have a group of people who are excited about something, it makes it an easier sell to put money into something like that. So you tend to try to find the situations where you can get the most bang for your buck, so to speak.
Awesome. And you briefly previewed your research as well. Could you share a little bit more about what you've done in the past and also what you're working on now?
Sure. So my lab develops cancer therapeutics. We also develop therapeutics for treating things like blindness. What we do is we take proteins and we tinker with them. So proteins are one of the building blocks of our body. They carry out all kinds of biochemical reactions that are happening in your bodies right now without you even thinking about them. And that's why I fell in love with proteins, because they're just these amazing machines. So you have proteins that are keeping you healthy, for example. There are these proteins called antibodies that fight off infection. Proteins make your tissue have integrity and actually make us have a structure as human beings. Proteins carry the oxygen in your blood. I mean, we could spend the entire hour just talking about all the amazing things proteins do. And what we do as molecular engineers is we take some of those proteins and we tweak them and we modify them and we develop them to actually work to our advantage to attack things like tumors. And we have really interesting molecules that we develop that are actually making their way into patients. One of those is in a phase 1b trial for ovarian cancer. So this is being used to treat patients who have ovarian cancer. We have other molecules that we use that are using the body's own natural immune system to fight cancer. And we're starting to now get into being able to use more computational methods to be able to better design proteins. Right now we use experimental technologies to do that. We use a technique called directed evolution, where we make millions of different variants of a protein, and then we have a very high throughput way to sort through those proteins to find ones that do interesting things. So that's what Caitlin, who's a graduate student in my lab, works on, and she'll be telling you a little bit about that in a few minutes.
That's really cool. What's drawn you to research? Because it's like you're working on such a small thing, so how do you think that your research has these bigger, large-scale impacts?
Well, I didn't start out wanting to develop therapeutics. I kind of evolved to that naturally. And for me, there's so many different things you could work on as a scientist or engineer, and I really wanted to work on things that could benefit humanity. And so it was very exciting for me to not only get to do research that was cool and interesting, but to have that research be able to have an impact on people's lives was very motivating for me and also for the students who work in my lab.
And at the start, you mentioned that you wanted to start as a dance student, which, first off, kudos to you. Everyone knows I cannot dance. But what do you think is the importance of combining humanities with science as well?
Well, I do think to be top-notch in anything you do, it's important to be interdisciplinary and to really draw from different experiences that one has. And even in the department and at Stanford, we have clinicians working with engineers, we have physicists, working with biologists, and that's really what's made the work be able to achieve a higher level of impact. So we were able to tackle tough problems that perhaps alone we might not have the insight or the expertise to solve. And so I feel like for myself, not only do I combine different areas, so I actually was trained as a chemist, and then I did bioengineering and biophysics as what's called a postdoc, so after you get your PhD. And now I'm combining that into bioengineering. So for my own research, I'm combining different areas, but then I'd like to throw in the artistic side and maybe present myself as a molecular artist or molecular designer, so to speak.
That's really cool. I actually saw yesterday one of my friends painted with bacteria, and she put them under like a fluorescent light, and you could see like all these different bacteria that were different colors. It was really beautiful. And then could you also touch on, you mentioned a little bit about teamwork. So how does teamwork help enable you to have like big growth and impact?
Yeah, teamwork is very important. So all scientists build upon the work of others. So we don't work in a vacuum, and we're able to accomplish really great things because people have come before us and really lay the foundation. So as I mentioned before, if you really want to tackle important problems, it's great to be able to have folks from different disciplines who can think about a problem differently and approach a problem differently. And so really, that's what's solving some of our most impactful issues in the world today.
And what's it like for you to be a woman in a really male-dominated field?
I never really focused on that. I just focused on being the best I could be and doing my work. And I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in sort of thinking about the numbers too much. But the only way that's going to change is if we get more of you and others in the room doing that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, you just do the best that you can do and believe in yourself and have confidence and know that there are examples of people who are doing it, and you can do it too.
And what role has confidence played in that mentality?
I think confidence is a really big part of it. So we were just talking about that before the session started. And with confidence, like you really want to be able to have the bold initiative to be able to take a risk. And confidence plays a big part of that. So workshops like the one that you're running today, I think really help to build that confidence. And perhaps it's helpful to see people like myself and the students that you're going to meet in a few minutes who've taken that journey, and to perhaps recognize that you could all take that journey as well.
What advice would you give to us girls who would want to follow in your footsteps?
That's an interesting one. I used to tell people to follow their passion. For me, I can't believe I get to get up every day and do what I do. It's so rewarding. It's so amazing. I feel like I have fun every day. And I feel like everybody needs to find whatever that is for them, whether it's science, engineering, whether it's music or dance. So I used to say, find your passion, but what I tell people now is to develop their passion, because finding your passion makes it seem like there's one thing out there that you need to find out what it is. But if you develop your passion and you just kind of go where the road takes you, it's okay to have twists and turns and to pivot and to try new things. I think the important part is just to get out there and try things and see what you are excited about. And then you'll quickly realize what that is, and then you can kind of follow in that direction. And it's okay to take a right-hand turn as well. At the end of the day, you just have to really enjoy what you do.
So then what keeps you motivated when you're struggling, when there's challenges?
Like I said, just the fact that I enjoy, like every day has its ups and downs, but at the end of the day, I know that we're doing impactful work, and I know that I'm passionate and excited about what we're doing, and so it really helps balance out the challenging times.
Incredible. Girls, do you have any questions? Enthusiasm, yes.
Have you ever considered using a certain chemical from the greater periwinkle to help treat cancer?
Well, there actually are a lot of people who are mining natural organisms for cancer therapeutics, and there are some that have been developed now. I don't know specifically about the periwinkle, but they actually mine a lot of sea creatures and a lot of plants to find new therapeutics or even trees. So Taxol is one example of that, and these are natural molecules that they're using to treat cancer. So many different avenues for developing drugs for cancer.
And do you think that in the future we could turn more to natural medicine?
Well, I think one exciting area of research is the microbiome. So you might have heard of the microbiome. Everybody has bacteria in their guts, and everybody in the room has different types of bacteria in their guts, which drive different processes in our body and drive, perhaps if some people get sick versus others, how some people react to drugs versus others. And when your parents used to tell you to eat your vegetables, that's the reason why. So you're actually feeding those good bacteria in your gut. And so that's a really exciting new area of research that I think we're going to be making a lot of interesting discoveries in the future about how to cure disease or prevent disease. So there's a shift in not only curing diseases once they form, but how do we prevent them in the first place, from starting by eating healthier and having better behavior.
Really cool. Anyone else? What's your favorite food?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. I don't suppose I have a favorite. I like a lot of food.
What do you like to do in your free time?
My free time, I like to cook, and maybe that's why I don't have a favorite food, because I like to cook a lot of different foods, and I like to travel, go to new places and explore new things.
Do you have a favorite place that you visited?
The Galapagos. I got an opportunity to go there a few years ago, and it was amazing, and there was so much wildlife and animals just everywhere, and a lot of different islands, and every island is very different. And as a scientist, that was just a really cool place to visit.
Anyone else? Yeah.
When did you discover that what you wanted to do was a job?
I think I'm still trying to figure out that this is what I want to do as a job. So not until late. Actually, I started out in college as a communications major. So I thought I would go into broadcasting. And as you can probably see from this interview, I'm not very good at that. So maybe it was good that I didn't actually go into that area. But I thought that I wanted to do something different. And it wasn't until college that I really fell in love with science and engineering. Looking back, I did always really like my science classes, but perhaps didn't realize all the amazing things that I could do with that as a job. So part of what these workshops aim to do is to just introduce people to those opportunities at a much earlier stage, so perhaps you can start to explore those things before. But even if you have your heart set on doing something else right now, it's never too late. So for me, it was much later in life that I kind of made that jump.
But making that jump, I feel like it's a pretty big risk. So how are you a risk taker, and how do you sort of incorporate risk and exploration into your life?
Right. So that's something else I realized about myself, is I do like risk, and I take risk, calculated risks, and but sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith, particularly if it's something you want to do and it's exciting and important enough for you. And if the alternative is it doesn't work out and you do something else, it's not really that risky when you think about it.
Anyone else? Yeah.
What's one thing you've overcome to get where you are?
Great question.
One thing I've overcome to get where I am today. Wow, you guys are asking me some tough questions. Well, I think the one that we just talked about, totally switching my field from communications, which doesn't really have much to do with the type of science we're talking about today. I actually had to go to school for an extra 2 years to make that switch. And at the time, it seemed really monumental. My gosh, I'm going to spend an extra 2 years in college to switch my degree. But now looking back, I don't even think about that at all. And glad I made that switch, rather than keeping on a path that I knew wasn't really the best fit for me.
Yeah.
If you ever work in a team where you sometimes viewed as the weak link, and how did you deal with that?
Being on a team that you don't click with, is that?
If you were viewed as the weak link.
Oh, as the weak link. Okay. Well, yeah, that sometimes happens to me even now. And so I think the best way to approach that is just to do your best and to show them that you're not the weak link. And maybe some of it is about perception, right? So I bet you that every single person on that team thinks they're the weak link. So that's the secret, is that everybody thinks they're the weak link. But some people just are maybe better at hiding that than others. So the goal is to just do your best, and that's all you can ask for. And there will be a lot of situations where you're better at things than other people, and they're better at you at some things than others. And so you're always going to have those situations. And part of challenging yourself is putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation where maybe you don't know everything, and that's okay. Because learning about it and developing is really exciting, and that's actually what keeps me passionate about what I'm doing, is just constantly learning. But that means being vulnerable and putting yourself in a position where you're not the smartest person in the room and you don't know everything, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Did you realize you were good at science when you were in college, or did you realize that before?
I only really realized it in college, and even then, I'll tell you how I fell in love with it. So I took a lab class, so we got to go into the lab and play with, I say play, but we were in college. We got to do experiments. And it, to me, was like magic. So we would combine different chemicals and mix them together, and there was just, things would change color. We could make materials. That was really exciting. So for me, I'm a very visual and hands-on learner, and I like to build things. And so actually getting into the lab and doing things with my hands was how I realized I loved it. So part of what we're going to do for you today is the women who've joined us have brought a demonstration for you guys to get your hands on some materials to discover and build things yourselves and just see what that feels like. So it's going to be hopefully a great opportunity for you to get a taste of that as well.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Have you ever considered the possibility that we could, use different things?
Like alternate medicine?
That wasn't what I was thinking, but
Why don't you think about it some more, and then maybe you can ask afterwards.
I think I forgot.
Okay.
No worries. Yeah.
So I just wanted to point out that I'm pretty similar to you. Like, I like art and I'm pretty hands-on. But it's interesting to see that different ways that it can be used. So what do you think, what are the different ways that you use your, love of art and creativity in science?
Well, I really like to build things, and like I was saying, build things with my hands, and I'm very visual. So for me, we create interesting new novel medicines that can hopefully help people. And the artistic side is just the process of being creative and the thought process that goes into that and how you approach a problem. I like to think of myself as a creative problem solver, and I think a lot of that comes from having an artistic side and developing that artistic side in parallel. So going back to your earlier point, I do think that it's important to combine the arts and humanities with science and engineering, and I know Stanford and other places are trying to create opportunities to do that across schools, because it is really important to have exposure to many different areas to not only be a better problem solver, but just to be a more well-rounded individual.